There we go, guys, walking up to the castle. In fact, that warrants a picture from here actually. Yes it does. A little bit of a snowy shot. So there's a robin just right there. They keep... there's the other side of twiggy stuff. As robins are, pretty tame, but at the same time skittish. Even though they might... There he goes, see up there? Oh, you can't get them easy enough. There he is. Oh, see, bye! There we go, guys. Not as white as hopeful. Not as white as I hoped for, but it still looks pretty. There's a little bit of white on there. Might be better around the other side, don't know yet. So let's have a little walk anyway. It's looking quite nice down there. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to walk around, take a few more pictures, and then think about wandering back home, about 5 miles or so walk. But yeah, it doesn't look pretty, it looks really nice. It's definitely colder than it was about an hour ago. Definitely feel it. Love the little bit of snow on the window ledges there. It's pretty cool. I see a squirrel somewhere. They're having a little munch, but they're probably hiding somewhere sheltered. I think I'll get a picture of that main big window there. So it looks quite cool. Oh yeah, the bridge is covered in snow, so that's nice. Chirp chirp. Oh, where the birdie's going. There we go. Got a bit of bird activity, but they're just around here. They're just there's so many humans around. I think they just try, even though they're about, and they probably get fed a bit. Where is he? There's a robin. Just got to find him. Oh, hopefully I can get a picture. I'm going to put the GoPro down. Hopefully I can snap a shot because it's quite snowy here. They're quite inquisitive birds, so if I hang around a bit, he might come and say hello. So I thought I'd do a little bit of HFR while I was there with this falling snow, nice bit of slow motion. Works quite well. The only way you can really see it is in front of the castle building itself, so obviously you've got something darker behind it. But it did actually work better at the other end. I suppose it was just a darker exposure, just generally, because if there's any sunlight, it would have been the other side of the castle which you're looking at now. So my framework would have been, the shutter speed would have been slightly higher. Yeah, so what an interesting day. It got worse, the weather, believe it or not, and a lot colder. And the chill factor of the wind and everything was getting quite evil. But I still persevered. I still had obviously quite a long walk home, which wasn't an issue. I'm not a person who gets cold or anything like that. Warm socks, decent waterproof shoes, and a windstopper jacket, and a couple of layers under that. It was absolutely fine, with decent gloves. So that worked really well. Unfortunately, the light for photography was really quite poor. It was okay in a lot of the situations, but when I came to the sort of wildlife stuff, with the ducks and stuff, it's not too bad because they're in the open. So as you can see here, still even shooting relatively high ISO 800, the shots are still coming out okay. It wasn't too bad at all. A little bit of noise reduction, As you can see, there's snow falling still in the shot, but my shutter speeds were suffering. So, I mean, this works anyway because you've got a little bit of movement in his wings, but it was pushing the ISO up higher and higher, and obviously my shutter speeds were obviously suffering. The only way to do that was obviously open the lens a bit more, which was impossible because they was wide open anyway. And I started using the pop-up flash. So this is actually the pop-up flash bouncing off the side of this tree trunk here, which actually worked quite nicely from about 15 feet away. So that worked quite well. Wide-angled shots, not really a problem. I was sort of shooting f4, even wide angle. F2.4 is a bit too shallow, you know, so that kind of worked. Obviously, looking at the castle, it was more the fact of just documenting it really, because it doesn't happen very often. We haven't had really decent snow for a few years, and you know, it was just nice to get out and about, and you know, even capturing a picture of a duck stood in the snow is just kind of random, but it just worked. The fact they just stood in the open like that, it was bonkers. They had plenty of places to go and shelter, but for some reason these ones here are just the three amigos, I suppose. The three amigos stood on the castle bridge. But yeah, so I mean, it worked. It was quite a nice shot. That I quite like it. But I said some of the other ducks were actually using a bit of common sense here, and actually down, even though they're actually sitting in the water. They obviously don't feel the cold, but they were actually up against the bank, so they had a little bit of shelter there. But even though the snow was still falling on them, you can see a few snowflakes there, actually on the duck. But again, I'm still shooting about ISO 800 now. I'm really starting to push my limits with the noise a little bit. And just because the light's rubbish. If it was sunny and you were shooting ISO 1000, it would be fine. But because the light's absolutely terrible, as you can see, a complete whiteout in the sky. And that's not edited, that shot at all. It's literally as the exposure was. There was no definition in the clouds, really. I mean, if I up the shutter speed hugely and actually lost all detail down below the castle, yeah, you'd see a little bit of grey. But other than that, it was really overcast. Few birds floating about still, which was fine, but they're not, unfortunately they're not very human friendly. They just sort of bugger off. This was quite cool. A blackbird jumping about, obviously looking for worms and splashing. There was actually a water, like a puddle, I suppose. A little bit of water there. He was having a jump around and having a bit of a drink or whatever, and possibly digging up worms and stuff as well. So that was quite cool. But then again, I was still 50, 60 feet away, maybe a little bit, no, probably more than that, maybe 100 feet away. And, you know, I couldn't get any closer really without them buggering off, because I'm so, the noise, the crunchy ground, it just spooks them straight away. And I wasn't wearing camo or anything like that, so I was very obvious to them. But I really like the colour of this. There's still golden leaves on some of the trees. And when you've got the snow, we've lost the green grass, it kind of really added to an autumn wintry kind of feel that. And then I saw some squirrels. This is where it became a little bit difficult. Like I say, my shutter speeds were suffering. Shooting now into the shade as such, with some of the trees actually still got either holly growing on it or ivies and stuff growing on it. So you're you know, limited on light. But also this shot here, trying to focus while he's moving, but also looking at my shutter speeds, they were just too slow. 1/320th of a second, even 500th of a second. Him moving quite a rate was quite difficult. His camera's focusing on pretty much. It was just motion blur. And also I'm shooting through, you can't really see, but I'm actually shooting through other twigs and things like that as well. So the autofocus had definitely had its work cut out. And then finally he stopped for a little rest after jumping about 3 different trees. Got an okay shot there, but it's not exactly the best shot in the world. It's just a shot of a squirrel. Looks like he's stretching out and doing an impression of a question mark. But then little robin popped up again. They're quite friendly, but they just don't like getting too close to you. Sort of 15-20 feet away at closest, which is a little bit annoying. Your home garden ones, where they're possibly a bit used to humans being, you know, feeding them stuff like that, it's probably you're more likely to get better shots. But squirrel sitting up the tree now, and this is where I love the RX10. The range you've got and how you can go from 24mm wide angle and zoom up to 600mm without swapping lenses or anything like that, which, you know, the kind of day I was out there, you wouldn't want to swap lenses anyway. There was so much rubbish in the air, like snow and, you know, just windy and, you know, whatever. You just wouldn't want to risk really taking the lens off a camera anyway. Plus it's lightweight, and that's the wide angle version, so that's where he was up the tree there in the middle there, you know. So yeah, that's the range you've kind of got, which works really nicely. And then another one here. This is where he's really in the shade. This is where I was talking about holly. He's actually in a holly bush, or holly tree, or holly bush is growing around that tree or something. But basically, he was very, very in the shade, and you know, the exposure there was not too bad. Then he came up a little bit higher, which was really nice, and he was just sitting there having a munch on something. So actually, not a bad shot. But he looked. I felt really sorry for him because he looked really cold, which obviously was cold. But you just, you know, you just kind of feel sorry for little animals like that sometimes. I know they're fine. They've still got food on the ground. They've still got water. They're still obviously used to that. So, but you know, he just looked a little bit sorry for himself, bless him. But other than that, it was yeah, it was good. It was just challenging.
Oh guys, heading back now. It was worth the walk. Just got about another 4.5 miles, maybe 5 miles to go. I'm going on the road this time. A lot less muddy, obviously, but obviously not more of a direct route. So I've got some hills to climb. It's not a bad thing, keeps me warm. But the weather's deteriorating. It's got windier, colder. You can see here actually, you can hear the wind blowing across the fields there like a treat. I don't know if you can see that. So anyway, let's keep walking. This lane here is one that's hardly ever used, and as you can see, it's only had a tractor down it by the looks of it today. So might come across the farmer. The view across there is stunning. So I would have walked right across there earlier. So now walking down here, this goes down and down and down, and then goes up steeply, and then we might go into the woods again, come out on the fields or something, but not really sure yet. Make a decision shortly. But yeah, it's quite a picturesque little lane, this. Plenty of water running down, so it is on a bit of a defrost slightly, I think, but still plenty of snow in the trees. Blackbirds and robins and everything everywhere. Loving it, I think. Still going down. I'm not looking forward to the climb back up. But yeah, very pretty down here. Very, very pretty. The road is knackered. I mean, the water that must rush down this road during the winter months, well, you can see it actually just pouring off everywhere. It's just destroyed the road. Oh, off the edge is gone.
So yeah, a little bit of time lapse on the GoPro before the battery ran out. Yeah, I mean, the problem with GoPro batteries, like I said on the first video, is they're tiny and freezing cold weather. I think the wind chill factor was about -6 on this day, so it wasn't very warm at all. And you know, even having it in my pocket every now and again, it really just didn't last very long at all, which is a shame. But I've got enough footage, I think.
It's a pheasant. He's freaking out because I'm in view. He spotted me.
Well, as you can see, some pheasants here. So these birds are absolute dimwits, basically. They have no real brains, I don't think. But you know, standing still in the middle of a field, once you know I've spotted you, you're not really invisible, are you? Hi, yeah, you can't see me. Yes, I can. Yeah, I definitely can, because you're, you know, quite bright coloured compared to that snow right below your feet, which is quite funny. Yeah, so got a few shots of some pheasants there. There was quite a few actually. But having the silent shutter mode on the RX10 is really, really handy actually, because I took a couple and you could hear that you could see that they could hear me, even though I was kind of the other side of a bush. But going to silent, they soon just went back to normal, whatever they're doing, even though they look a bit confused. But yeah, so having the silent shutter mode is actually really, really helpful feature actually. And this one here, he was just wandering along, even though he had seen me. once I'd actually gone silent, he was absolutely fine. So yeah, that just is quite a handy little thing to have.
That was really cool, guys. I just literally in one of the banks here, it's actually in one of the tree stumps, sort of a bit like where these icicles are. You can see. I think it was a wren. So I managed to get a little bit of video of him. Photos, not sure how well I did because they don't stop. They literally darting around, and it's actually, even though it doesn't look so dull in camera at the moment with the GoPro, it's actually not particularly good light at all. I'm shooting at sort of ISO 1000 at 600mm f4 to get sort of 200th of a second, and obviously don't really want to go too much more than that because I have to use quite a bit of a noise reduction. But I've got a bit of video in 4K, which obviously I can shoot at sort of 1/25th of a second or 1/50th of a second ideally. So yeah, we'll see what it looks like. And yeah, so that's cool. Not far from being back now, about another 1.5 miles to go. It's on the worst of it now actually, so I've got one little hill now to go up now.
So here he is. Like I say, this was, it doesn't look it, but I'm actually down to 1/25th of a second at ISO 800 to actually get these shots. So, you know, the light there was absolutely, it was really shadowed, very, very heavily in shadow. Like I say, there's no sunlight whatsoever, and it was just terrible lighting. So for photography purposes, you'll see in a second, it was actually very, very challenging to get anything actually. But video wasn't too bad, and it's just interesting to see. And he wasn't bothered. I was only maybe 10 feet from him, and he wasn't worried about me at all. I was just very quiet, moved very slowly, and it was there. Even the flash going off, I mean, he just happened to fly then. The flash going off didn't actually freak him out, but as you can see there, even shooting at ISO 1000 with flash, f4 at 1/320th of a second, I think it was the best I could do. And again, flash there. There's plenty of shots that I did take which are very dark and rubbish basically, and absolutely pointless. I started off at sort of 1/125th of a second, I think, and I pushed it up to about 1/320th of a second, but relying on the dynamic range of the sensor and everything to pull it up. This shot here wasn't too bad, but still, it's still not amazing. And as you can see in this shot here, it was dark. As you can see the motion blur there of him just darting, and that was at 1/320th of a second. And you know, it's just difficult, unfortunately. And some things, you know, that's the whole point of photography. It's a challenge. You know, challenge yourself every day to do something new, and it's always worth having a go. I mean, today, you know, we can instantly see what we've got. Well, this shot's not so bad, but it's still, the details kind of lost because I'm shooting at over 1000 ISO now. You know, and it was just a struggle, but it's also worth trying, also experimenting to see if you can improve on something. So yeah, here's a snowman. He was pretty cool. I thought he was going to fall over quite a bit, but he was there. And this shot here is actually a mole coming out of the molehill there. It is an edit. I've never seen a mole in my life. I've seen plenty of mole hills, but I thought, you know what, it kind of needs a mole in it. So I thought, well, at least I can do is just have a piss around and just have a little edit. And you know, it was snowing quite heavily, so it kind of added to it. But as you can see, it's not brilliant, but it kind of works, and just adds to the effect really. Anyway, guys, yeah, don't forget to click the subscribe button and the little notification bell, and I shall see you soon.